Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today I'm coming to you all with a review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, directed by Destin Cretton, and starring Simu Liu, Tony Leung, Awkwafina, and Yeoh. Shout out to AMC for providing this early showing. I was so excited for this, and I'm very thankful that I had a chance to see this ahead of time. Especially because it gives me a chance to, get my review out early, but besides the point. Story-wise, this film is centered around a young valet named Sean who lives a relatively simple life. However, this all changes when Sean, whose real name is Shang-Chi, finds himself hunted by a group of assassins with a very specific motive. Soon enough, Shang-Chi finds himself at the mercy of the Ten Rings organization, where he must finally confront the past he thought he had left behind. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start with the pros. As with many Marvel films, there was a lot to appreciate and enjoy here. First, let me start by saying that I was exposed to many aspects of Asian culture when I was very, very young. My grandmother literally traveled the world, and that included, of course, Asia. And I specifically remember when I was younger, always going over her house and seeing the various artifacts and memorabilia that she had from China, from Japan, and similar countries. And for anyone who's watched my Fear Street Part 1 review, you know that I grew up as an extremely avid reader. And even when I was still in my picture book stage of reading, my grandmother was very intentional about infusing what I was reading with all sorts of cultures and perspectives. Which means that I had the opportunity to read books like The Boy of the 3-Year Nap, Tiki Tiki Timbo, Lon Popo, Grandfather's Journey, The Crane Wife, and many, many more. So that was established early on, and in the years since then, I've been exposed to all kinds of film and literature, and I even had the opportunity to visit Japan and live there for 5 weeks, and I was able to soak up so much knowledge, so much history. So I've been extremely fortunate to have had experiences that have exposed me to that culture and allowed me to enjoy it and have an appreciation, not to be confused with appropriation. Message! For so many facets of Asian culture, which I realize encompasses various countries and nationalities. And so even for someone who is not Asian, I still wanted to express how impactful and important it was, even for me, to see this being represented on screen. And I'm so, so appreciative of that. That leads me to the first aspect of the film that I appreciated. Being that this is based on a pre-existing Marvel character, we now have the opportunity to see that representation and seeing this cinematic world reflecting that culture to some degree. So seeing the various actors of Asian descent was awesome, and I thought the casting overall was really solid as well. I did enjoy Simu Liu. He is a relative newcomer, which I love, and I thought that he did a pretty solid job capturing the awkward, quirky aspects of Shang-Chi, but also was really on point with the fighting sequences. There are a lot of great moments with Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, but I think a lot of the fighting sequences was when I felt the character really coming to life. I mean, just the energy and the strength and the exhilaration of it all, it really, really left an impact on me. I'm somewhat ambivalent about Awkwafina as an actress, but I will say that I thought that her comedic skills really shined in this film, and I thought the chemistry between her and Simu Liu as Shang-Chi and Katie really, really worked. I really did appreciate that dynamic because not only was it relatable, but it was funny and it was very heartfelt at the same time. I've already mentioned how much I appreciate Tony Leung as an actor in my Shang-Chi trailer reaction video, so I won't get into that piece here, but I will say that I felt that his performance as Wen Wu really grounded the film, and it really gave a solid foundation for the story. Tony Leung is just one of those actors that has a lot of presence, and whenever he was on screen, I could feel that. His character wasn't outwardly expressive so much, but there was just something about his presence in the film that allowed me to really feel a lot of that character's turmoil, his conflicts, and a lot of emotional resonance as well. I was also happy to see some very surprising cameos and some brief appearances by certain actors and possibly an MCU character here or there. I won't spoil that, but it is something for you to look forward to. And very quickly, I would like to shout out the actress Chen. Many of you will know her for her excellent and memorable portrayal of Auntie Lindo in 1993's The Joy Luck Club. But her career has spanned more than 6 decades. She's appeared in countless films, television shows, and plays. And although she only has a brief appearance here, I thought she really made the most of it, and I was very, very pleased to see her here. I thought the production design, the costume design, and of course the fight choreography, all really, really on point. I like that we balanced a lot of different styles here. We saw some that were very brutal, very gritty, very in your face. But then we also balance that out with some styles that are very ethereal and very elegant and very poetic almost. And I think the progression of the film does the same thing. We see a lot of straightforward, grounded, very gritty scenes in the beginning. And as we continue on, we move more into magic and mythology and mysticism. And I really enjoyed that piece as well. I also thought a lot of the set pieces in which we see the fight choreography was very well put together. You've probably seen it in the trailer already, but we do get a scene on a bus, as well as another scene that takes place on the scaffolding outside of a skyscraper. Man, both of those scenes were very thrilling, very effectively done. I thought both of those scenes were quite the adrenaline rush. I mean, just watching it, I was like, whoa, wait. You know, it just really kept you on your toes as you were watching it. The energy was really flowing through both of those scenes. And I think that the way that it was constructed around those individual settings really brought it home. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to the cons. Now, this was a fun time and there was a lot I enjoyed, but I couldn't help noticing a few things that were unexpected. Now, while overall I did enjoy Simu as Shang-Chi, there were some moments where he was just a little stiff acting-wise, and it was really more so the moments where he was supposed to be expressing emotion. I think within the context of the story, he's meant to kind of be a character that is struggling, tapping into that, but even still, I felt like it just was a little stuck as I was watching. And I'm not sure if this speaks to the characterization or the way he was written within this film, but I also wanted to see just a little bit more edge to Shang-Chi and just see more of the grittier side of him come out. We do reference his history, and I do realize that within the context of the story, there's supposed to be a disconnect there, but I thought there was going to be a moment or moments where that was going to come out unexpectedly and really just like, whoa, like go there. And we didn't quite get that. And that's unfortunate because I think it would have really enhanced a lot of the scenes with his character. As far as Wenwu, I am not sure we got enough of him here. I do understand we're juggling a lot of other characters story-wise, but I felt like he just needed more screen time. I thought Wenwu was a very compelling character, but in some way I feel like I didn't get quite enough of him, not as much as I wanted at least. I think that he had a very compelling story arc, but as far as the resolution of his character, it was really a letdown. It felt very incomplete. I was just sitting there like, that's it. Now let's talk about these effects. I am not a huge stickler for CGI. And that's probably because I grew up in the 90s, which means that I grew up watching a lot of films where practical effects, animatronics, and even hand-drawn animation, that was at the forefront. So I realized times change and CGI is at the forefront now, and that's fine. I can accept that. That being said, I think there were some moments with the CGI where it looked a little bit cartoonish, a little bit too animated, and it wasn't quite as polished as I thought it was going to be. And the same thing with the green screen. I am also not the biggest fan of slow motion unless it's used sporadically or effectively. And I felt like there was just a little too much of that here, to the point where it was very awkward and almost unintentionally comedic. When it happened, I was just kind of like, all right, don't know if that was necessary, but okay. And lastly, I thought the final battle of this film was, to put it simply, a lot. I enjoyed how it started. I was enjoying the progression of it. But then somewhere we like turned a corner, and then it just felt like all of a sudden my senses were just being assaulted with CGI. It was very over the top. It was very bombastic. It was very much the equivalent of getting on a kid's roller coaster. And then you go through a tunnel, and all of a sudden, you're on King Dakar. It also reminded me of when the Ancient One pulls Stephen Strange through all those dimensions, and he's just like he just cannot keep up with what's going on. That's kind of how I felt. I was really like, wait. Whoo! And as far as the spectacle of it, the wow factor was definitely there, and it was just like, oh, this is really cool. But it also was such a huge leap from what we had seen before that I was just like, I can't fully connect to this. So yeah, just the transition from the practical to full-blown CGI like that, it was a lot to kind of take in at one time. We are building up to certain things happening, but just the like, it was a whole lot going on. I don't know how it would have worked, but I do wish that we had found a way to create a finale that didn't quite have to do so much in one scene. Because it almost felt like it was something that could have possibly happened in a second film, but it's just like, we're going to go big or go home. And they went big, and I went home. So yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings a B+. This may not have been top tier as far as origin films in the MCU, but I actually thought it was a very compelling first entry, and I was definitely invested enough to see what we can do with these characters, how we can explore more of this world, and to also see where this is going to factor in as far as the MCU. I like that this was not your typical Marvel film. There are certain things we become accustomed to seeing in Marvel, and I think that this definitely distinguished itself enough to where it was Marvel, but it didn't actually feel like Marvel. It wasn't like the typical Marvel formula. And I definitely think it's worth watching. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will be released in theaters September 3rd. You guys feel free to check it out, leave your thoughts below, and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.